Alright, number 1. This is the Unit 4 review worksheet in the back of the packet. So it says it's the midsegment. So 2 times the midsegment, x plus 5, is equal to the parallel side 3x minus 1. And we distribute to get 2x plus 10 equals 3x minus 1. Subtract 2x from both sides, add 1 to both sides, and we get 11 is equal to x. Be careful to read the instructions. It said find the value of x. We found the value of x, so we're done. But in problem number 2, you're going to see where this could get you into trouble if you don't read the directions. Okay, number 2, DE is a midsegment of ABC. If AD is 15, so AD is 15, and AE is 14. Find the value of AB. So AB is the distance all the way from A down the side of this triangle B. So it says DE is a midsegment, which means E is a midpoint. So if that's 14, this is also 14, and the entire thing is 14 plus 14 for 28. So the number one thing you have to know from these first two problems is it's 2 times the midsegment equals the parallel side. Number 3, multiple choice. Which group of side lengths can be used to construct a triangle? So you just have to know that the two smaller sides must be bigger than the biggest side. Okay. So for A, 5 plus 8, is that greater than 15? Well, 13 is not greater than 15. That is wrong. So therefore, this one is no. This one cannot be used to construct a triangle. For B, the two smallest sides, 10 plus 12, is that bigger than 20? Well, 22 is bigger than 20, so that one's yes. It can be used to construct a triangle. Okay. You gotta remember, two smaller sides, 15 plus 10, is that bigger than 25? Well, 25 is equal to 25, but it's not bigger, so therefore that's no. And for D, people get tricked. They do the first two, but remember, it's the smallest two sides that must add together. So 2 plus 15, is that greater than 18? The answer is no. You cannot construct a triangle from them. Okay, from 4, list the order from shortest to longest side. So we have angle, 40-degree angle right here. That's the smallest angle. That points all the way across to the smallest side, which is AB. A is the next smallest angle, and that points across to the other side, BC. B is the biggest angle in our triangle, and that points to the biggest side, which would be AC. Okay. For 5, these are two side lengths of a triangle, 41 and 23. So we have two options. We have that the missing side is one of the smaller sides, 23x 41, or 41 is the biggest side, or is the other smallest side, and it might be bigger than 41. So x could either be one of the smaller sides, or it could be the longest side. We don't know. But we do know that if you add the two smallest sides, 23 plus x is greater than 41, it must be bigger than the biggest side. So when we solve each inequality, we get x is bigger than 18. So x has to be at least 18 or more. Actually, it can't even be 18. It has to only be bigger than 18. Okay. For this one, we have 23 plus 41 is greater than x. or 64 is greater than x, x must be less than 64. So the possible lengths are anything that's bigger than 18 but smaller than 64. You can write this together as 18 is less than x is less than 64. This says x is any number between 18 and 64. For 6, a perpendicular bisector is perpendicular through the midpoint. That word bisector is important. Bisector cuts something in half through the midpoint, so that's D. The angle bisector bisects an angle. It's kind of in the name. The median kind of sounds like middle. That connects the midpoint to the vertex. That's A. And the altitude is perpendicular and it goes to the vertex. That's C. So, if AE is a median, that means that these two sides must be congruent to each other because E is the midpoint. So, AB congruent to AN, we don't have enough to know that. Angle B congruent to angle N, still don't have enough information. BE congruent to EN, that's true. And BAE, this angle, congruent to NAE, we don't know. Okay, 8. Use the given triangles to draw a segment. We're going to draw altitude. Remember, altitude goes from the vertex straight to the opposite side to make a 90-degree angle. An angle bisector cuts an angle in half. And forgive my artistry. A perpendicular bisector cuts something in half down the middle and forms a 90-degree angle. And a median goes from the middle to the vertex. Okay, so A, what is the name of the intersecting lines? This is perpendicular bisector. So perpendicular bisector. And that forms the circumcenter. For B, you notice a whole lot of angles are marked. Those are the angle bisectors. And that forms the incenter. From C, C has to deal with midpoints all over the place. That is the median, which makes up the centroid, or the center of gravity of a triangle. And D is made up of all of the altitudes, and that makes the orthocenter. For 13, this is an angle bisector, and these guys are perpendicular. Therefore, that means that these guys are congruent to each other. So it's 5x minus 3 equals 3x plus 1. And we need to solve it. Subtract 3x, add 3. We get 2x is equal to 4, or x is equal to 2. Now notice, they didn't ask you for 2. They said find AD, which means I need to plug it back into x right here. So this would be 3 times 2 plus 1, which would be 7. 14 is a similar kind of thing. We've got to find x. Again, these two are going to be congruent to each other. 10x plus 7 is equal to 8x plus 24. Subtract 8x on both sides. Subtract 7 on both sides. We get 2x is equal to 17. and divide both sides by 2 to x equals 8.5. So to find LT, I need to plug that back in. 10 times 8.5 plus 7, that comes out to 92. And 8 times 8.5 plus 24, that also comes out to 92. And they should come out to be the same answer, because we said in the beginning of the problem they were equal. If you got two different answers, something's wrong. Go back and fix it. You could have added wrong, you could have set it up wrong, you could have accidentally subtracted when you meant to add, a bunch of stuff could have went wrong. Okay, 15. X is the midpoint of MN. Y is a midpoint, Z is a midpoint. That means we're dealing with mid-segments. So find XZ. Remember, this segment is half as big as its parallel side. XZ is 9. If XY is 10, find MO. Remember, it's 2 times the mid-segment, 10, is equal to the parallel side, 20. If NO is 18, MN is 13, find MX. So if this is a midpoint, that means it cuts this in half. So 13 divided by 2 gives you 6.5. For 16, we have congruent, we have perpendicular. Therefore, that means that these two guys are congruent to each other. So we subtract 3x on both sides to get negative x is equal to negative 5. And divide by negative 1 to get x is equal to positive 5. So x is positive 5. To find TW, you plug it back in. 2 times 5 is equal to 10. And 3 times 5 minus 5 is 15 minus 5, which is 10. Again, they should be equal to each other because you set them equal to each other in the beginning. 17, we have angle bisector, we have perpendicular. That means these guys are congruent. 7x plus 3 is equal to 10x minus 9. And we solve just like we've been doing for a long, long time. 12 is equal to 3x, or x is equal to 4. For 18, which is the smallest angle? Let's look at the sides first. This is the smallest side, and that points all the way across to the smallest angle, which is angle M. Or the sides from shortest to longest. The shortest angle is F. That points to DE. The next smallest angle is E, and that points to DF. The biggest angle is D, and that points to EF. If you ever get stuck, you don't know what pointing means, well, look, if F's the smallest angle, see how F isn't in the name? You just use the other two letters. The middle angle is E, it's not in the name, you use the other two letters. That's there to help you out too. Which segment in each figure would be the shortest? So we got to figure out what the missing angles are. We got 52, 61, that's 113, and 180 minus 113 is 67. Over here we got 48 plus 85, that's 133, so that makes this 47. So 47 points to the smallest side, which would be EG, but if you look at the other triangle, that is the biggest side. That's a conflict. If it's the smallest side, it should be the smallest side every single time. So when that happens, we need to default to our next smallest angle, which is 48, and we're going to go across the triangle that way to our smallest side, GF. Again, we got to find missing angles. This is 59, and this one over here would be 60. 55 is the smallest angle, and that would point to AC. But again, there's a conflict, because 61 also points to that, and that's the biggest angle. So what you're going to do is default to the next smallest angle, which is 59, see that it points to side length DC. Same kind of deal over here. This angle over here is 73. You figure it out because it's 180 minus 82 minus 25. That gives you 73. Over here, if I need to find this missing angle, I'll say y plus 87 plus 23 is equal to 180. Y plus 110 equals 180. And y is 70 degrees. So 23 is our smallest angle. It points to BC. Again, that's a conflict. Go to your next smallest angle, 25. That points to AB. Two sides of triangles are 5 and 10, so we have two situations. We could have the other side is one of these smaller sides, or we could have that it is the bigger side. So 5 plus x must be bigger than the biggest side. We subtract 5 from both sides to get x must be greater than 5. Over here, the two smaller sides must be bigger than the biggest side. And we get 15 is greater than x. So x must be bigger than 5 but less than 15. So we could write it all together like so. X is between 5 and 15. Okay, we got to do a lot of midpoint work. A is at -2, 1, 2, 3. There's A. B is at 0, -5. C is at -4, -1. Let's connect them all. Okay. So we need to find D, the midpoint of AC. So A is -2 and -4. So that would be -2 plus -4 divided by 2. And then 3 and -1. 3 plus -1 over 2. So coordinate D is going to be a grand total of -6 divided by 2 is -3. 2 divided by 2 is 1. There's D. -3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1. That's D, the midpoint. For E, we need to find the midpoint of CB. So it's going to be, I'm going to do work over here. 0 plus -4 over 2, comma, -5 plus -1 all over 2. That gives us an x value of -2 and a y value of -3. -1, 2, -1, 2, 3. There's point E. Point F, we have to show that we're finding midpoints again, and that's the midpoint of AB. So this will be -2 plus 0 over 2, and 3 plus -5 over 2. -1, -1. There's point F. Okay. So we found each of the midpoints. Now we have to do slope formula to show parallel. So we have AB. A was at -2, 3. B was located at 0, -5. x1, y1, x2, y2. So we do the slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 is negative 5 minus y1, which is 3. x2 is 0 minus x1, which is negative 2. That comes out to negative 8 over 2 for a slope of negative 4. AB, we're trying to show is parallel to DE. So we're going to do DE next. Again, D is at negative 3, 1. E was located at negative 2, negative 3. Let's plug it into the slope formula. We've got x1, y1, x2, y2. So negative 3 minus 1 over negative 2 minus negative 3. And that gives us negative 4 over a positive 1, which is a slope of negative 4. Sorry, I'm getting sick. Kids need to wash your hands. So you would do the same thing for the next few coordinates, because they want them to do every single side. It's good practice. We can check them in class tomorrow, but that's the process. Now we got to do distance formula. Again, I'm going to do A, B, and DE. So the distance formula is D equals the square root x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So for AB, x2 0 minus negative 2 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. 0 minus a negative 2 is a positive 2 squared. Negative 5 minus 3 is negative 8 squared. 2 squared is 4. 8 squared is 64. This is the square root of 68, which when we break it down with a root, that is 4 times 17, or 2 times 2 times 17. So this simplifies to 2 root 17. You could, if you wanted to, also do Pythagorean theorem. My next one is I'm doing DE. So for DE, if I were to connect these to make a right triangle, 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1, that is a side length of 4, side length of 1. If I do 1 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared, that's 1 plus 16 equals c squared, or 17 equals c squared. And we square root both sides to get the square root of 17 equals c. AB is 2 times longer than side length DE. And again, they want you to do this for the other few sides as well, just to get the practice in. For 23, make a 2-column proof. RP, RT, that's given. So RP congruent to RT, that's given. We get to mark it. It also says that RX is a median. Well, if Rx is a median, that means X is a midpoint. So therefore, Px is congruent to Xt. And we know that by the definition of median. This one was also given, by the way. Next, we have a figure being cut in half. That is the reflexive property. So Rx is congruent to Rx, and that is the reflexive property. So I have 1, 2, 3 things marked in a triangle. They're all sides. So triangle PXR is congruent to triangle TXR, and that is by side, side, side. They wanted me to prove that angles were congruent, so I can prove it now. PRX is congruent to angle TRX by corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. Okay, best of luck, guys.